one more video here about instrument variables. What I want to show you is something in Stata, how we are going to do this analysis. So it's the same example where we have grade and where we have a study session and a conflict, and we're going to use it. So the first thing I'm going to do is just set my number of simulated observations nice and high at 100,000, so we don't run into any weird stuff with our simulated data. And then we're going to have a fourth of our population, had 25%, have some sort of conflict that precludes them from coming to the study session. This code will be commented and put up on the website if you want to play around with it and do your own thing. We're going to generate our error term, calling it other stuff. It's going to be a normal distributed variable with a mean of 75. And what I'm going to do in these next two steps, you can see other stuff is showing up here. And it's going to be about half of the variation here. What I'm doing is I'm constructing a variable using other stuff that depends on whether, or that influences whether the students actually attend the study session. So the next variable I'm generating here is a variable called attend, which is 1 for the highest 67% approximately of our population. Now that's only capturing if you wanted to attend. If you had a conflict, you're not going to attend. So this is that attend right now is still 1 for those who had a conflict. So the next thing I'm going to do is change my attend variable, because if you could not attend, then if the conflict was 1, then attend should be 0. The final variable that we're going to create here is your grade. So your grade is going to depend on other stuff, all those other things that we talked about, attendance in class, reading the textbook, doing the labs, and there's going to be programmed in here a 6-point bump that happens right here. That's what the 6 is if you attend the study session. And I'm just going to put some, so things look a little prettier here, put some formatting for those two variables. Now let's just do our simple ordinary least squared regression and see what that would give us for the impact of attendance on grade. So we estimate the impact of attendance on grade at 9.8. We know that's higher. We made the impact 6. This is constructed data. We know the impact is 6. The reason that is higher is because there is a correlation between attendance and other stuff. This correlation is the reason that we are getting that higher variable. In fact, if we could do a regression that included the other stuff and take all that out, we could get at the causal effect. So this is going to throw an error, but it's getting us the right coefficients. It's throwing an error because there is no variation. This is exactly how our grade is constructed, is attendance plus other stuff. We're unable to control for this in real life. It's unobserved. So let's think through this idea of having the conflict and what that means. And so I'm going to use the tabulate command here to look at how grades differ for people who have the conflict and who do not. Actually, because we can see the other stuff, let's first look at whether other stuff differs. It does not. On average, the other factors that are going into influencing the exam score lead to an exam score of 75, both with and without the conflict. If we look at grade, but we see the grade is higher for those without the conflict. Grade is approximately 79 for those without the conflict, but 75 with those with. That's the intuition for getting at how we're going to be able to use this as an instrument. Now let's go ahead and run through our first and second stage regressions. So what we need to find out next is the relationship here between attendance and conflict. We know there is a relationship. Let's go ahead and run our first stage regression. And we get a coefficient that's approximately 2/3. And the reason that is the case is because that's how we generated our variables prior when we created this relationship here. The second part of our first stage here is we need to store these estimates. We need to store the estimate of attend hat. And so we're going to create a new variable that is the predicted value of attendance. If we browse and look at our data set, we can see that there are only two values for attendance. There's one that is 0 if there was a conflict, and there is one that is about 67%, approximately that. There's only two values for attend hat because there's only two values for conflict, and we're only looking at that particular part and that particular variation for attend hat. Now, if we were to create the rest of the variation, we'd actually see there's multiple values. There's the people who didn't attend and the people who did attend for those with the conflict. So here is somebody who didn't have a conflict and attended. So the attend hat portion is that 66. The other stuff is that 30. Here's someone who didn't have a conflict but did attend. The attend hat is still 66, but the attend tilde, that portion we're not interested. This is a slacker. They could have gone, but they did not. That is the attend tilde. All right, now we have our attend hat. We are ready to run our second stage. Our second stage regression simply takes, instead of using all of X, we only use the portion of X that is coming from and explained by our instrument. So we're going to regress grade on attend hat. And we get a coefficient that is very close, 5.946. Very close to the true value. We get a good estimate here. Now, a couple of things to emphasize. In our example that we used with the two people, we were dependent on those two people being very, very similar. Those exact two people. What we're dependent on here is that the other stuff is similar in expectation. So when we did that tabulate command and we actually looked at other stuff here and looked at, is that different from people who have the conflict from not, the important thing, the exclusion criteria, is that these need to be the same. Generally, this is not testable. We don't know what the other stuff is. We just know grade. We don't know what all the other things that are impacting grade. So generally, this is not testable. The only reason we're allowed to test it here and able to test it is because this is simulated data. So I will post this to our website. Go ahead and you can play around with it if you want. You can change the parameters. You also can see what happens if you lower the number of observations. The variance of this will get high very quickly. That's something we have to worry about with two-stage least squares using the instrument variable approach. I hope you're well, and I hope to interact with you soon. Take care.